So I have a really busy day today, so I'm getting started on supper early. And first I'm going to make a roast. I'm just going to put it in the crock pot. So first I'm browning it. I've just got some olive oil heated in here, and then I'm going to add my roast. This is just a beef roast, and I'm just going to salt and pepper it. You could season it any way you like to. It's brown. Now that it's had time to brown on that side, I'm going to turn it over for a few more minutes. Now what I'm going to season it with once I put it in my crock pot to cook is just, it's like Lipton onion soup that you can buy in a mix. I've actually made this. You can make homemade. There's lots of recipes out there. If you do a search, you'll find it. Or you can just buy a packet of the Lipton soup and use it. So since I'm going to do that, I'm going to go ahead and sprinkle it on this side, and then I'll be ready to put it down inside my crock pot. It'll kind of be the bottom side there. So I'm going to scrape up all those little bits that have cooked on, and I'm going to add part of this over my roast. You could also use beef broth, or you could use chicken stock, whatever you prefer. You could even just add a little water, would be fine. When you cook in a crock pot, you probably already know this, but you don't need very much moisture. I could add nothing. I could just put the actual roast in there. The juices are going to cook out of it and give it some moisture, and that would be plenty. So now I've got the roast in the crock pot. I've added some more of my onion soup mix I made and put those drippings on top of it. Now I'm ready to shut it up. It depends on the size of your roast, of course, and if you know how long it takes to actually cook in a crock pot. On low, this size roast for me might take 6 to 8 hours. On high, it might take more like 4 to 6. Luckily, even though I have a really busy day, I'm going to be at home all day. It's just stuff that I need to do here. So I can keep a check on it, keep an eye on it. You'll notice that I have carrots in there and I don't have any potatoes. That's because we're not going to have potatoes with this roast. We're actually going to have turnips. We still have turnips that we need to harvest out in the garden that we planted last fall, so we're going to have stewed turnips with it. So it's a little bit later in the day. It's after dinner, and I've got some things done. Still got some more things I need to do, but now I'm going to start my green beans. So I've got a jar of green beans that we canned last summer. Some people drain off the liquid and some people don't. That's just personal preference. I'm one of the people that does drain them. I drain them, not all of it obviously, but I drain most of it. And then once I get them in the pan there, I'm going to add water to cover, and I also like to season mine with bacon, so I have a couple of pieces of bacon that I'm going to throw in there and let them cook. I'm also going to add some salt and pepper just to taste. Again, personal preference. Sometimes I would use salt pork, fatback we call it, or streaked meat, but today I'm using bacon. And you can taste the beans as they go along, so I may need to add more salt. And then I'm going to add some water to cover, and I like to add it in my jar that the beans come out of to make sure I get all those beans that was kind of floating around there. Which still didn't get them all. Will get me a little bit more water. I got them all. Now I will let this simmer and cook in Appalachia, we like our beans really done. They're technically done because they've went through the canning process and been pressurized, you know. But we like them cooked really done, and very popular to season them with a type of meat, whether that's bacon or fatback or ham. On this cold day in southern Appalachia, I've been thinking about the garden, thinking about the luscious fruit and ripe tomatoes and blackberries. Blackberries was really what I was thinking about. So I all of a sudden decided with supper I'm going to have a blackberry cobbler. So that's what I'm going to start right now. This is a super easy cobbler recipe. You can find the link to the recipe in the description below, but I'm sure you've probably made it yourself. So simple. I wish I had some fresh blackberries to put in it. I don't. So what I am going to do is I'm going to spoon some, I have some blackberry pie filling, and I'm going to use that. Okay, time to put in the oven. Okay, it's time for me to start my turnips. I've been having them soak in water since I harvested them earlier this morning, just so they kind of helps all the dirt sprinkle off to the bottom. You don't have to peel them, but I typically do go ahead and peel mine. If you've never had turnips, think of a cross between a cabbage and a potato. It's what I think they taste like. Now, my favorite way to eat turnips is just to slice off a piece and to sprinkle salt on it and eat it like that. But probably my second favorite way is to stew them, and that's what I'm doing today. A lot of people like roasted turnips. That's good. Roasted, a lot of recipes, especially old recipes you'll find, are where they fry turnips. And a lot of those recipes suggest that you should put a pinch of sugar or a little bit of sugar in them to keep them from tasting bitter. But I've never added sugar to mine. I've never had that problem. But we really enjoy them stewed, just like you would potatoes. We call those soupy potatoes, so I guess these are soupy turnips. And you can tell since we grew these, they're all different sizes. Some are really small, some are large. That's what happens when you make a garden and grow food. It doesn't look all uniform like it does when you purchase it from the grocery store. But it tastes a whole lot better. Last fall when we planted these turnips, in a video I did with Corey and Katie where I was testing them on their Appalachian vocabulary, I teasingly said if they'd failed, they had to help me plant the turnips, clean the garden off and plant the turnips. And they failed, so they did help. So then today when I'm eating them, or any time this winter when I've been eating them, it reminds me of that fun that we had that day when we were doing the test. A lot of laughing and cutting up. Turnips kind of have that kind of a peppery bite, slightly hot, or not really hot, but like a peppery bite, I guess is the best way to describe it. Just like cabbage, some cabbage does, and like radishes do. A lot of people say that turnips are actually sweeter after they've been frosted on. Well, these have been frosted on several times, of course. Frosted on, snowed on. Sometimes turnips can get, this one's not, it's got some woody places in it. So you could just trim those out or just throw the whole thing away. When it comes to cutting up the turnips, you just need to use your own personal preference on how big you would like yours. I generally go for about that size, but you could do them larger or smaller. So when it comes to stewing your turnips, it's up to you what kind of seasonings you want to put in it. I like to put butter in mine, so I'll put some hunks of butter. Of course, I salt and pepper it, and that's about it. That's about all that I put in ours, and I will just stew them until they're tender. Matt likes lots of pepper. Me, not so much, but I try to find a happy medium, I guess. And then I will cover these with water and put them on the stove and stew them until they're done. Getting close to the time Matt usually gets home for work, so pretty much the only thing I have left is to make the cornbread. So I've got my pan heating in the oven, and then I just need to get the rest of my stuff to mix up for the cornbread. I did go downstairs and get us a can of pickled beets. I think that'll go very nicely with tonight's supper. It's funny, when I was a young girl, Granny always either made cornbread or she made biscuits. And back then, I didn't really care for cornbread as much. I was always more excited when she made biscuits. That was kind of my favorite. But today, as an adult, I just love cornbread. I could eat it pretty much every day, just like Granny could in those days. So I've got some extra egg yolks that I saved from something I was making where I just needed the whites. So I'm going to use them just to make sure to use them up. I'm going to put them in my cornbread. Now, I have a video about cornbread if you've not seen it. I actually have a video about 3 or 4 different kinds of cornbread. So I have milk and some oil in this. You could use bacon grease, you could use olive oil, you could use canola or vegetable oil, whatever you prefer. I'm sure you could use like sunflower oil too. That probably would be really good. Lots of different ones. You could even use coconut oil. It might give it a slightly coconut flavor, but that would still be good. So I just heard my oven, it come up to heat, so I'm going to get the pan out so that it'll be piping hot when I put in my batter. I'll go ahead and mix it up. My advice to everyone about the cornbread is you find your own batter, what you like the best. Like I'll use a White Lily cornmeal mix. That's what I really like. I like fresh ground cornmeal too, though, like Clay and Mr. Delorier shared with us. But mostly I use the White Lily mix. But over the years, I just found what I liked the best, what my family liked the best, what served us. So that's my advice, is find whatever kind of mix you like, whatever kind of batter, or if you like coarse ground or fine ground like I do, or maybe you like yellow cornmeal instead of white cornmeal. We like white cornmeal. That's what I use. Anyway, find whatever works for you, and then the secret is just to use a cast iron pan and to get it really hot with whatever kind of oil you want to grease it with, whether lard or bacon grease or, again, canola oil or olive oil or whatever, before you put the batter in. That's the secret to get that wonderful crust. I just need to put my You want to hear it sizzle. That's what you like. Taking out the cornbread. Beautiful. Here's the roast. Turned out beautiful as always. It's such an easy way to cook it, and it always turns out good. Pretty much is so tender it just falls apart, but I might try to slice a little bit of it. Here's the turnips. I think I'm going to leave the green beans in the pot to make it easy. Cut the cornbread and we'll be ready. Hungry, Matt?
Get out my way.
Hard day at work?
Yep.
Love turnips.
Me too. Very good.
What do you think they taste like? So many people have never ate turnips. Like between a cabbage and a potato is what I say.
It tastes like a cabbage got dirt on it.
Cabbage.
It does to me.
Cabbage that's got dirt on it. Of course, our beautiful green beans from last summer. Looks so good. Actually, our beets from last summer too.
Love beets.
And our turnips from now. Still harvesting turnips. Pretty good food.
Gosh, yes.
What was the best? The turnips?
Turnips. I think.
So good, ain't they?
They're like we don't eat them. I haven't eaten them lately, and it's just like a treat to eat something like that. It's just so good.
Wow.
I could eat those things every day.
I know. I like to eat them just raw too. Is that enough or you want more? A little bit more.
What is that?
This is blackberry cobbler.
Night.
I know. I was thinking about summertime and decided I wanted to make some. It's just canned blackberries, but
that ought to be fine.
Get some out. I should have got a knife. I've got the sides crunchy, but that's how I like them.
Maybe.
You need ice cream, or you think that's good?
No, this is good. I don't want to foul up a good cobbler with store-bought ice cream. That's my philosophy. If you put ice cream on there and something this good, it should be homemade ice cream.
Well, it's true. Well, it is good. So good. It tastes like summer.
It does. Are we good?